afternoon, everybody. Appreciate your patience. Before we get started, I wanted to share a couple of numbers with you. I thought it might be of interest. It was to me. There's somewhere north of 167 bills in rules right now, and by tomorrow, I suspect after the committee meetings, there'll be closer to 180. So I guess I'm telling you that to tell you that we're probably just not going to get to everything. We'll do the best we can. So we've got a couple bills we want to consider today. House Bill 268, which is a rule substitute to House Bill 268. It's LC 492328S. And Chairman Irwin is going to explain that for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Just to look at the change for you here, by the way, we're getting quite good at changes. Really what this change is, it generates reports of de-identifiable S3 records disaggregated by grade, age, race, sex, ethnicity, language, learning status, and direct certification of income status. That was the change that we included in the bill, and that it would be the substitute, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. You all should have a copy of that, LC 492328S. Do we have any questions for the author? I have a couple of questions. Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has this been presented in rules before it got sent back?
Did you hear the question?
Where's it? There's it go.
I just can't remember. I apologize. Have we heard this bill here yet this session in rules?
In rules?
Yes.
No, have not.
It's a 60-something pages. Obviously not chapter and verse, but generally speaking, does it do any? Could you give us a little bit of an idea of what it does?
Basically, what you're looking at here is a school safety bill. Throughout the pages, it begins with mental health and supplying school systems with a number of mental health based on their school population size coordinators. And those coordinators are going to come in to connect services for children that are in crisis. Another ability this bill provides is a linking together our response agencies and our educational systems so that we can communicate about children. We also develop a BTAM team, which is a threat assessment team that is able to be at each school to look and have tiered threat assessments so we can respond to those threat assessments. So it is coordinating all those agencies not only by communication but building teams, building plans, trying to secure the environments within the school and giving us the ability to be preventative by working with the mental health of the students that are in crisis and getting them to the services they need before they transition into a desire to hurt themselves or hurt somebody. So that encompasses the biggest part of the bill.
Okay, have another question. Leader Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was my concern, that I didn't think we had heard this in rules. Speaking to the mental health coordinators, are they based on some type of ratio of students, or what is the basis for them?
Great question. We did that based on, we started with 18,000 students and less get one coordinator for that system. And then there's another tiered system from 18 to, and I would need to look back through, I believe it was into the 30,000s, get 2, and above 30-something thousand will get 3 of the mental health coordinators. This is a very important part of this bill, I will tell you, so that we can work with these students as I said, to keep them from transitioning into violence or hurting themselves. So those coordinators will then be able to work with systems and train the teachers, train administrators to know how to look for these students that are in crisis, and then how to connect them to those services.
One other question, if I may, Mr. Chair. So these mental health coordinators, they are a level on top of school counselors? Is that what we're looking at?
I won't say on top of school counselors. We have counselors today in schools called guidance counselors, and then they're for guidance. We are now supplying a person or a position in there that is going to be dedicated to the behavioral health of a child, some more of that mental end and that mental end training. I can see school systems putting these same counselors in the counseling office with a different focus on how to assist the kids rather than guide the kid through their education program.
Okay, don't see any other questions. I'll entertain a motion to do pass.
Move do pass.
Have a motion and second to do pass. Any other discussion? Any opposition? It passes out. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have another bill, House Bill 651. We have a rule substitute to that, Chairman Powell. It's LC 394729S.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, this is a interesting piece of legislation that deals with these school zone cameras, and I had been asked to produce a product that would be workable and fair because of the issues involved in it and the contention. But if you'll look at this bill, start on Section 2. This starts with the signage, and we're moving from just the flashing signs to flashing sign with a speed detector on that sign that would which would depict the speed of the vehicle as they're entering a school zone. So these are signs that would tell that person that's driving the vehicle that they may be exceeding the speed limit. Section 4. This deals with rebuttable presumption. This deals with the 35% rule. This has been recently added in the last hour or so at the request of some of the members. That this is that rule that we did on radar and speed traps a few years ago that said that local governments, if they raise more than 35% of their working capital off of these type of devices, then they're going to be penalized. Section 5 is something that I really considered that was put us in line with the other laws of the state. This is the 10-mile-an-hour over rule. In the state of Georgia, we've always said that the only people who can give you a citation is the Georgia State Patrol, unless you're with the exact speeding violation. This gives you 9 miles an hour, so you've actually got to be 10 miles an hour over. So in those school zones where it says 20, it's actually going to be 30 miles per hour. So that adds a 10 mile an hour to that, so it puts everything uniform statewide on that. At the top of page 5, A and B gives a definitive hour, the definitive time these cameras can be used. 2 hours in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, an hour before school starts, and an hour after they take in, and the same for the afternoon. Hour before and an hour after, very specific. On line 101, this deals with 4 lanes. There's been some questions asked about some jurisdictions running these on 4 lanes. This puts it under DOT approval to define the 4 lanes, if that's so. You get down to line 111. The citations would be $75 for the first violation and $125 for the second, and it strikes the $25 admin fee that is current law. Page 6. If you look at that language, this is an attention to anyone that gets a citation. It defines the legitimate agency that's sending it. Just basically says that they have to send it in an envelope, first-class envelope, with which prominently displays the name and the seal and the logo of the governing body that is issuing that citation. Top of page 7, on line 145, this is a notice of rights to say that you have, in large letters, it says you have a right to contest liability by contacting your local court. And then you get to page 9, somewhere around 212, and it carries over into about 236. This is a section that at some point was put in. It said that if you get a citation and for whatever reason you don't pay it or it's still out there, that it would be reported to the Department of Revenue, that it would stick to your title of your car, and you couldn't sell that car. We struck that language. So we've now done away with that part of the current law. And then I think most importantly, where we've done is, if you look starting on line 241, this gives a description of school safety purposes, and what we've done is we have cut the money in half, that 50% of the fines would be retained by the local jurisdiction to pay for the administration and whatever they want to do with that, but the other 50% would be given to the local school systems in that jurisdiction. So it ceases to become as a lot of people said, a revenue-driven device for local governments. And that, Mr. Chairman and speakers, that's what members, that's what it does. Be glad to stumble through any questions you might have.
Okay, we got a couple of questions for you. Chairman Stevens has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking through the bill since I've just seen it. Show me in the bill where whenever you have a clear defective camera, that there's a provision in here that requires them to remove it and replace one that's working.
Well, I do not know where that would be, unless it's under the current code, which I don't think it is. That's up to the local jurisdictions about cleaner cameras and such as that. I mean, it's got to clearly show that that's your tag number. It's got to read it. And you also need to remember that in the current law, in the original law, the local jurisdictions, the local law enforcement agencies, they're supposed to review these tickets. Now, I don't know how many of them actually do that. I know that we've all heard the stories that people's had their vehicle on the back of a tow truck and they picked up the tag. You know, surely that law enforcement officer, if that's true, the law enforcement officer could have seen that. So that's still up to the local law. And if they don't have a clean camera or the lenses of the camera, well, they can't show anything. And you can always just another right to contest it in the court if you want to do that.
Can I follow up, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
sir.
Just one more. That situation where, and I've gotten a retired administrator of the school system, which avoids the school drives 30 minutes out of the way. We've got a 2-lane highway. She's looking at 4 tickets on her table where she does 17 miles per hour. The camera picks up her car along with the speeding car beside her and sends her a ticket. This is not unusual.
Okay. Chairman Linson.
Yes, I just wondered if you could direct me. One of the main complaints that we've had is the camera running all day long. Is there specific language, and I'm looking at it, I just want to make sure I'm interpreting it correctly, 91 and 92, that just limits it to 2 hours in the mornings around the time that they arrive and 2 hours in the afternoon at the time they depart. It's not running all day long. Is that my understanding of what this language
You're exactly
does?
right. This clearly defines the time. No time during the day, none of this at nighttime events or athletics after the hours. This is 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, around the time that school takes in and lets out.
Follow up is the lights have to be activated or operating at the time that during these time periods.
That is so, and that's the law right now.
Well, when it's running all day long, that's not the case. So that's okay. Only while the flashing lights are
I think
operating.
that the jurisdictions will probably, when they see this bill, it's going to probably get their attention to be a little bit more diligent about how they're using these devices.
All right, thank you.
Leader Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author of the bill, how did you all come up with this 50-50 arrangement? And are there restrictions on what each party of this 50-50 arrangement can spend their monies on?
We looked at some of the numbers that had been reported, and there was an extravagant amount of money that was being raised off of these by a lot of small jurisdictions. And you know, the old adage around here, whether you believe it or not, follow the money is always part of the rule that creates a lot of issues with good intended things. And by cutting half of that money, instead of the jurisdiction getting 65, 70, 75% of the money, you know, they'll get 50%, but what they'll have to do in that 50%, they're also going to have to pay for the cameras or rent them or buy them themselves or subscribe to them or whatever they do with these things. So that's going to probably take a sizable amount of the money that goes to those local governments. Basically drive them back into the realm that these are supposed to be tools for safety in school zones.
Representative Holcomb, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, I'm curious as to the legislative intent of the phrasing demonstration of prior history in line 102. Do you mean demonstrated history of speeding during school hours, demonstrated history of accidents? What is it that you're driving at there?
What's your line number?
102. There's a clause that says for the 4 lanes, it says to have a camera.
My understanding, which may go back to the question from Chairman Stevens about 4 lanes, but my understanding is that this is a term that DOT gives the approval about what lanes are what they can run them on, just like radar, and that would deal with the 4 lanes. If a school's on a 4 lane, they may not have purpose to have it, and this would be a restriction to them for running these on 4-lane roads.
I think my question, if I could do a quick follow-up, is what would we expect people to show through that demonstration of prior history in order to satisfy that?
I think the word is the prior history is what DOT would how they would make their rules on these of highways more than a 2-lane. They would look at they would look at whatever the traffic and the safety standards and all that, and whether these were needed on 4-lane roads.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Chair Lady Taylor, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, I do have a couple questions. I have one of the schools that is 2 lanes one way, 2 lanes the other way. We have a football stadium there, tennis courts, and will those apply throughout the day? I thought I had read before that when you have it where different sides of the highway, it would apply all day. I didn't see that in this bill. Yeah.
Very specifically, this classifies this as 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon.
Okay,
I don't think it gets any more clear than that. And then the language that the previous representative had asked is that the DOT would have control over deciding these 4 lanes.
Could I follow up? There's no indication about how much money is actually going to the company that they are leasing these systems from. So if it's a $75 fine, some portion of it will first go to that company, and then the rest of it will be split 50-50?
I understand that there's 4 companies that either provide, lease, or whatever the proper term is. And I've even heard that some of these jurisdictions are looking at buying their own cameras, which is quite a scary thought to me. But you know,
Okay.
the 50% rule, 50% of $125 is $67.50. That means that local jurisdiction would have to negotiate with the company if they want to be the company to send out the warnings. They could do it if they want to put up their own signs. I mean, this is just the guardrails around how it operates. So when it comes down to who they want to negotiate, they can negotiate, or they can buy their own cameras.
Chairman Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, thank you so much for your hard work on this bill. We've got to get guardrails, and you're doing a great job of kind of leading the effort. But on line 145 and 146, it says that whomever's getting the citation would include language, you have a right to contest liability by contacting your local court. I know that some people, between people traveling through our state, getting these love notices, and people such as we're from all over Georgia, and we get one in South Georgia. Are we talking about the local court where I live and my car is titled, or are we talking about the local court where the incident happened?
I'm sure that would mean the local court where the incident happened. My understanding is that a lot of people who contest these that go to their local courts, I understand that a lot of them are just immediately tossed out.
Well, just a further question, if it could be our local court, that I wouldn't have to go all the way down to McIntosh County, as beautiful as that county is, and be able to have some kind of process of appeal through my local magistrate court, that sure would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the bill.
Okay. Chairman Martin, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. If, gentlemen, on lines 25 through 27 of the bill, when you're redefining school zone, an existing master state order or local ordinance, if those two are in conflict, which would it be the most restrictive, or would one prevail?
My understanding from Legislative Council that a master state order would be the DOT or whoever is setting that school zone, or the local ordinance. And I would suspect that it would be the locals that would have that prerogative to establish their school zone. And if you look down through the bill, it says very specifically where they have to put these signage up, flashing signs and all of that prior to entering that school zone.
Just a brief follow-up. So if this passes, there would be, the state will form one in order to give the locals time to update theirs. Because when this comes effective, they'll then have to hold hearings to set that ordinance. So that would be how that would work. The state will have one prepared, so we just all of a sudden won't not have school zones anymore for a while, though, right?
You know, if it's not on a state highway, I think that the locals would establish that the boundaries of a school zone is what I think. And this master state order would do it on a state highway.
Okay. Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, this reminded me of something a moment ago that some members have a question about. You know, some of these cameras, and run by some cities especially, do registration tickets. In this bill, does it clarify that they cannot do anything but speed?
My understanding, that's the current law. That's all they've ever been able to do is just speed on these. Because remember, this is a civil. If they use a camera, that's a civil penalty. It's not a traffic citation per se.
Well, I wish as this moves through, if you could let's try to find a line in here as it moves through that clarifies that they cannot use it for anything but speed.
Well, you know, if this bill passes the House by this body, there'll also be a second bill for your consideration. I understand. Last year, and I would be remiss if I didn't remind the members that last year, the chairman of public safety, Representative Collins, passed a couple of these bills over, and they got basically stymied over in the Senate. They had no appetite for it. I understand through rumor, and this is only rumor, that they have no appetite to ban these cameras. So this would be, if these two bills do come up today, and if this body passes both bills, and they would both go over, to really give the senators something to think about.
Okay. Chair Lady Cooper, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What do you mean, nothing else? That they can't be charged? I mean, what if they're drunk driving? Or, you know, are you saying that they can't be charged with it? Or I'm misunderstanding?
Nothing else. These school zone cameras can only be used to detect speeders in a school zone.
Okay.
There's no other citation, since this is a civil citation.
well, okay, they couldn't offer a citation, but if a policeman saw them doing it,
This does not stop a police officer if a police officer sees a driver is violating some other law or even the speeding law.
okay, thank
And
you.
that doesn't stop them from having a police officer on duty.
Okay. Okay, don't see any other questions. Do I hear a motion? So moved. Have a motion passed and second? Any opposition? It passes. I'll tell you this, these two chairmen have worked very hard on these two pieces of legislation. They have tried to take a lot of input, I know, from various folks who have come to them. And I thank them, Chairman Irwin and Chairman Powell, for your hard work on these two pieces of legislation. Okay, what we're going to do now is set a supplemental calendar for today. House Bill 175. Have a motion and a second. Any opposition? It's on. These under modified structure. House Bill 179. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 200. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 219. Second. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 225. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 235. Second. Moved and second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 238. Second. Okay. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 268, Rules Substitute LC 492328S. Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 322. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 339. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 340. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 369. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 426. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 432. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 443. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 449. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 455. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 515. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 516. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 551. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 569. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 563. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 575. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 584. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 651, Rule Substitute, LC 394729S. Any opposition? It's on. Under structured, House Bill 297. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 463. Second. Any opposition? It's on. Thank you very much.